Serious, what event in your life made you realize you're not as smart as you thought? At a bar with some friends and one girl said that her parents told her last week that she was in a special group for slow readers all throughout elementary school and she never realized it. We laughed really hard until one by one we all realized we were too. So that's why I would always be pulled out of class every day and have to read with that random person. I'd say the adults handled it well then. The negative blow to self-confidence of being told you're stupid stunts learning. I was a cashier for a couple years in high school. One time this guy got me to give him change for $100 without actually giving me the bill. We watched the security footage afterwards. Still couldn't figure out how the slick bastard did it. Trying to get food out of my braces by covering my finger with my sleeve so it didn't get cut up again. Sweater got caught on the bracket and I panicked, which led me to repeatedly smack myself in the face. I'm having a great time picturing this. Interactions with people who are intentionally, maliciously manipulative. It always catches me completely off guard. I'm usually really perceptive of people and situations, but I never ever expect or anticipate those types. When I became a social worker, my manipulation deflector kicked into high gear. You see this with lawyers and nurses, too. It has become really hard to sell me stuff. My first semester of art school, I was one of the top art kids in my high school, and got accepted to one of the top art schools in the country. But of course, I'm hot crap, right? Only problem is that now I'm surrounded by every other school in the country's top art kids. The difference between the projects and concepts we were expected to do versus what we did in high school. The art program in my HS had no money. I had to buy my own supplies at times, was astounding. Let alone that I'd never really gone through an actual critique in my life before. We had to explain our first project, make a portrait of ourselves using only duct tape. I'd never done 3D material, aside from clay projects. Most of my work at the time were drawings and paintings. It was awful. Halfway through my explanation I'm looking around the room and realizing how childish and stunted my ideas were. No one had a thing to say, it was that bad. I went home after class and cried for hours. My first year of music school was like this. I left high school as one of the best musicians in our program. Section leader for all the school bands, blah blah blah. Once university started, I struggled a lot to do well in class, and pretty much everyone else was a lot better than I was. I cried a lot that year. Spent 2 years writing, aka musing idiotically about, a screenplay. I finally finished it and unleashed it onto the world. Reactions were terrible, as they should have been. Unlikable protagonist. Boring story. What was I thinking? All of my unchecked confidence was drained in a day. I felt like such a freaking idiot. Because I was. Leaving school. I was always pretty smart in school and all my teachers told me as much. But when I went out in the real world I realized smarts are relative and just about everyone is smart in their own way. I was academically smart, but I was ill prepared to deal with mundane things in the ordinary world, like handling money, relationships, etc. Law school. Man, I thought I was hot crap on day one, but my first semester scores knocked that out of me right quick. I had no idea how to study, because I'd never needed to, and everyone else around me was as smart as I was or smarter. If you're the smartest person in the room, then you're in the wrong room. In terms of booksmarts, college. Just college in general. I was the type to always have a really good memory for things I'd heard and paid attention in class. Then I had to learn to actually study and do actual papers with actual research and everything just completely fell apart. In terms of just general feeling of intelligence though, I forget when but someone said that you 5 years ago was a bloody idiot, and in 5 years you'll look back at yourself and realize you're an idiot right now. I think it was around when I was 14 and it just stuck with me. It wasn't even a specific trigger event or anything, just a moment of key enlightenment that I've kept with me forever. There is a joke that everyone starts a physics major in college because they want to understand how the universe works, and everyone finishes feeling that they know less about the universe than when they started. Then you go on to do a PhD to show yourself that no one else really knows a lot about the universe either. Seriously, I think everyone who goes into science, particularly hard science, Just so out of a suspicion that they could be the next Einstein or Curie. But all those who finish are the people who realize their first year that there is no real innate genius, just people who work really hard. But all those who finish are the people who realize their first year that there is no real innate genius, just people who work really hard. This is something my non-academic friends and family don't get. A PhD doesn't necessarily mean you're genius level, just that you're capable of working really hard. Being unemployed for about half a year maybe didn't make me feel less smart, but definitely like I needed to start taking my life a little more seriously. Made me realize I'd kinda been half-assing everything for a long time, not just job-wise but in general. Before I was kinda cocky, thought my crap didn't stink, thought everything would just fall into place. Being unemployed really taught me the value of money, as well as taught me that nothing just comes to you. You have to go get it. This is my sister. She had offers from jobs all over the world. She didn't accept them. She wanted something in a nice sunny place. She has been unemployed for almost 6 months, with not a single chance of finding a job in her sunny paradise. I seriously hope she can start to reconsider things soon, before she becomes too depressed. Just growing up, I thought I was good at programming and CS when I was in grade school, middle school, but when I started reading about others in the field I realized I'd only ever be mediocre at best. That must have been late high school. I went through college and got my CS degree, but I knew the entire time that it was the only thing I could really do, and I was even worse at everything else. Working in a mechanic shop. I used to be one of the top students in my high school. Rough situations made me have to choose to become a mechanic for a couple years to make ends meet. Those guys handed my butt to me. I started working at a dealership after attending an automotive technical trade school a couple years out of high school. Some of the stuff I learned from the older guys blew my mind. We have a fancy scan tool that we can plug in to find a misfire. Old guy, why don't you just aim your temp gun at the exhaust runners? Coldest temp will give you a place to start. Put a coil pack in it and ship it. When I got my first job, I was always a decent student, but everyone I work with were the top students and much smarter than me. I am old enough to have read through the Harry Potter series as they were published, and twice more since. Genius me only realized this week that the house name Slytherin is a play on the word slithering. Diagonal I. Say it. Listen. Getting laid off from my first real job. I was one of 3 night operators in a small IT department. The company downsized. I was the only one with any real computer experience and trained the other 2. I was the fastest learner and most responsible. I was 100% confident my job was safe. I was dead wrong. The company decided that the other 2 were good enough. I made the most money, so I'm the one that helped their bottom line the most by getting rid of me. Now that I'm older, I easily see the logic in that decision. Totally been there, done that. Company hired me to improve their website, which was admittedly total crap. But when the company started to bomb with the recession, I was the first to go. I got the last laugh though, because they didn't update their site again for about 4 years after they laid me off. I call it the giant white bear incident. My girl and myself at the time were arguing about a giant stuffed white bear being out in the desert with us at a party. I was 100% convinced it was not there, and could not be convinced otherwise. Later she found a picture of the bear and showed me. It was then that I realized the fragileness of memory, and that anyone who believes with 100% accuracy that they are correct could still be wrong. What the frick, I get that, man. All throughout K-12, I was a whiz in math. I entered a district-wide math competition twice and got a trophy twice for my division. I was always the best and smartest guy in math in any room, and I got really cocky about it, to the point where my AP calculus teacher saw that I wasn't even studying for the AP exam. I got a 4, but I think he knew that I could probably have gotten a 5 if I really worked for it. But I never had to study for a math test ever in my life. I went to a good university, and the first math class I took, I figured I didn't need to study either. I figured I'd just ace the class and get an easy A, like I always did, since I was the smartest guy there, too. The problem is that most people who major in math were the smartest guys in their class in high school. I got my first B in math ever at the end of the quarter, and I realized that I was a big fish in a little pond in high school. But in college, I was a little fish in a big pond and I need to actually work and study to get good grades in math. I was late for school and my mom worked close to it, so I asked her for a ride. Here is how the conversation went. Me, mom. Yeah, have you left for work yet? It took me, I crap you not, TRN minutes for me to understand why my mom was laughing at me. I would have answered yes immediately. College was a rude awakening. I coasted through high school, got into a pretty good college easy, then completely blew it. I didn't study and skipped class, thinking that it would be fine since I got by while doing the same in high school. Feeling like an idiot was the worst feeling for me. Totally crushed any sense of validation or purpose I had. My parents always thought I was so smart too, so I wouldn't let them see my grades. Almost a year after graduating, I'm realizing that I cheated myself out of so many opportunities because I was lazy. At least WoW didn't come out your freshman year. Christ, that game ate my life. Medical school. Going through the first decades of my life being the biggest fish in a cup full of water. Never had to study for an exam in my life through college graduation. Nothing could have been a bigger kick in the balls than the first day of class when I realized I was already about a week behind on my material. Spending time with a 6-year-old. What's the biggest meteorite in the sky right now? How many caterpillars turn into butterflies in a day? Why do we use the word thousand? Why not a different word? It's not a nice word. Just watch me put this Lego together flawlessly without instructions whilst you cry over the IKEA cabinet you've been working on for a week. This is like a childlike belief that everything can be known by a human being. As you grow up you realize how little of our world is knowable. Going to college. I used to be a pretty smart kid from kindergarten all the way to high school. I then entered college where I met some true maestros, witty people, street smart people and academicians. I got to understand what it means to be innately smart, like to just be born with it. Really made me cool down a bit. Academic. It's a noun and adjective. The first time I try to learn anything, I'm usually reaffirmed by the fourth time I try something and everything starts to make sense. Diligence has been my greatest ally in learning. Same here. I have so many friends who say things such as, well, I tried it once or twice but it was just frustrating and I just couldn't get into it. I have never been good at anything the first few time I try it. One day I wanted a snack from a vending machine. I saw what I wanted in slot C10. I thought about it for a second, and then proceeded to press C first, followed by 10 in rapid succession. Needless to say, I got what was in the C1 slot. You're still smart in my eyes, man. Lots of vending machines take 3-digit codes. It's not your fault there's a lack of standardization in vending machine UI. Messing with politics. I got to realize that intelligence is relative, and that this does not mean that everyone is equally intelligent, but collectively stupid. Drastically changing state school systems. In grade school I was the super smart kid who subsisted on praise and everyone telling me what a tiny genius I was. I won awards, I was put in gifted programs, teachers freaking loved me. Then my dad joined the Navy and we got shipped over to Virginia. They saw my grades and decided to get me started in advanced classes. Turns out I was never a tiny genius. I was just smart by rural California education standards. By Virginia standards I was painfully average. I still remember the first time I got a C, struggling not to break down sobbing in class. I still took AP and honors courses through high school, but I wasn't the top kid in them. Heck, I even failed calculus senior year. The ego deflation was real. I've got too many to count, but my latest incident involved losing my car keys. Inside the car, I never exited the whole time. They just disappeared. I did eventually find them, but for a few short minutes I was seriously questioning my sanity. Sophomore year of high school I left home to go to an accelerated high school for gifted students in math and science. Now most of these kids were like me, smart and clever, and if you put us in any normal high school we'd be in the top 5 without any efforts whatsoever. But there, in that place, there were 5 or 6 kids that made all the rest of us look like idiots. Being above average in the presence of true genius is an ego-crushing experience. Being above average in the presence of true genius is an ego-crushing experience. So much truth in this. When I realized that the people who were smarter than me were more driven and hardworking than me. Also when I met people who I thought should be smarter than me and they weren't. Made me rethink what smart was. My girlfriend. Every girl I've dated, I've impressed them with my deep, dark philosophy and broodiness. They think I'm some cool, intelligent, suave person. I used the same tactics to meet my current girlfriend, but as we got closer, my mystique wore off and her intelligence really shined through. Overachiever in everything she does. Straight A's in advanced university classes, yet is taking more credits than a full-time student. She is majoring in finance and economics and runs circles around me describing the intricate details. It actually got to the point where I was even jealous and a little intimidated. This girl is obviously going places with her life and I'm going to be Matthew McConaughey from Dazed and Confused. Instead though, now I see it as a good thing. She's amazing and now instead of intimidated, I'm motivated. Just keeping up with her is better than anything I've ever been. Junior high. In my grade school, I was widely regarded as the smartest student in the entire school by the faculty. 300 kids. I was always the person with the highest grades, completed my tests first and made sure that my initials were atop every copy of Number Munchers in sight. I was the only child to have won Student of the Month multiple times in a single year even. I was clearly king crap and everyone was to bow before me, academically, for life. But then I went to junior high school, 1,000 kids, and realized that there were kids who were not actually only smarter than I was. There were also kids who were much more motivated than I was to go the extra mile. To be honest, I probably wasn't even in the top 10% anymore. It was kind of crushing to learn, but all in all, glad I was knocked down a peg or two before high school or college rolled around. In the university I learned that if you are the smartest guy in the room, you are in the wrong room. I learned that instead of being envious of those who are smarter than me, I can learn from them like I could not if they weren't smarter than me. In the university I also learned that I am not as dumb as I thought I was. Dear Lord, the first time I drove the car on my own, I somehow managed to end up swerving onto the grassy verge, turning around and driving the wrong way at 60 miles per hour because I was lost and didn't realize I was on a dual carriageway. Took me far longer than it should have to realize why people were flashing lights at me. Crap was at when I figured it out. I'd been playing piano since I was 8 or 9, taking lessons until I moved to another state. I finished 5th grade there and went on to a middle school. I was still playing piano on my own, just sorta teaching myself. In that middle school, I had a music class and all the kids in that class thought I was Mozart. Even the teacher was praising me. My ego had been pumped up enough to try out for the middle school jazz band. All my training to that point had been pretty much classical with a few easy pop songs thrown in. Why I thought I could play jazz piano is beyond me now. Audition came and I did my piece. Got a good job from the different teacher who conducted the jazz band. Then some other kid shows up and plays the Charlie Brown theme song. Blows the teacher away and all the other students waiting for their auditions for different parts. They pretty much chose him on the spot. I was devastated. Going to college in my 40s. All those young 20-somethings had such amazing memories and were able to grasp things more quickly than I could. So I ended up removing learns new things quickly from my skills list. The third time I took dynamics in college I realized that I didn't apply myself. Made it to non-linear control theory before I realized I wasn't as talented in math as I thought I was. In my defense, I didn't take linear control theory as a prerequisite, but by that point a master's in aerospace control systems was a pretty far stretch for me. When I knocked up a stripper, you would never guess at it if you met me in person. I told a friend's new girlfriend before my son was born and she just burst out laughing. She said of all of his friends, "You are the last person I expected to hear that from." I always thought I was the smarter one in my marriage until we were discussing crappy things her mom did when she was growing up. And then there was the time in 5th grade when I finished 2nd in the state on a math test and got into the magnet school and she told me it wasn't a big deal and that going to the magnet school would make me unhappy. We are the same age. We were in the same state. No one told me I finished first on this test. I think I'm the idiot out of the two of us. My senior year of college at a highly rated institution, I took a financial derivatives class that was required for my major. My grades to that point in college had been excellent, as I never really had any trouble grasping the material that was taught to me. I also had good study habits, so that combined with easily understanding things the first time meant that I'd kept near a 4.0 from middle school all the way through to that moment. But there I was in this class, and for the first time in my life, I was greeted with concepts that I honestly just could not freaking understand. I would listen to the professor, I would read the text, I would read a different text to see if hearing it worded a different way would give me that aha moment that had always come so quickly in the past. I googled things and read about concepts from as many different sources as possible, hoping one of them would just click. I eventually was able to fully understand about 80% of what I learned, but the other 20% I just had to straight up freaking memorize. I never really got it. I just memorized it well enough to get my A in the class and move on. It was honestly terrifying to try so hard but never be able to understand something. I thought this must be what it's like to be stupid. I suddenly had way more empathy for the kids who struggled with math way back in grade school. How the heck can you not understand how to multiply fractions made perfect sense in a world where I couldn't understand when you'd buy a put option and when you'd buy a call option. I still know that I'm smart, smarter than a lot of people, for sure, but I'm not the smartest person on earth, not by 1,000 miles. Throughout my youth I was always considered a math genius, always was the student the other students came to for help. I got perfect scores on calculus AP exams, perfect math scores on SAT and SAT 2, etc. I go to university, and there was a mix-up with my AP scores. My advisor lost the paperwork detailing which classes I already had credit for. He started me off with courses that he knew I hadn't tested out of, classes like Calculus 3, Intro to Proofs, Discrete Mathematics, etc. The students in my math department heard about my course load as a freshman and praised me quite a bit for being dang near a prodigy. Then Vlad came. Name changed, of course. He started in my sophomore year, and he was the real deal. Dude had already been taking advanced mathematics courses while he was in high school, so starting university he was already ahead of me. He was a legit math prodigy, and by the time the Putnam rolled around, I was ready to accept my life as a fry cook. Ah well. I went to Caltech. Nearly everyone admitted to Caltech who did not come from some specialty school like Bronx High School of Science or Stuyvesant High School had generally spent most of their life being the smartest kid in school or tied for that position. And usually kid could be replaced with person in that sentence without reducing its accuracy. You very quickly learn at Caltech that your days of being at the top in all your classes, or any of your classes, are over. It's wonderful. It was more gradual. It is scary. I guess I thought being smart would protect me in life, but I realize there are people way smarter than me who don't have answers to a lot of problems. No particular event, just a gradual process in my 20s. I got a U in politics. I had studied intensely all year, taken to the lessons with vigor and given my all in the exam. It wasn't even enough for a grade. Eventually I retook it and got a B overall, but it didn't half make me realize that there's always room for improvement. Later I had to have the same kick again. In second year of uni I nailed my grades and was well on my way for a 2-1 at least. Third year I nearly blew it all, but got a 2-1 eventually. It's a tie between low grades costing me my scholarship to community college where I eventually dropped out, and failing out of the army. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.